Yeah, good evening, it's Charlie ZL2CTM. Well, I thought it was high time that I put up a video and have a bit of a talk about, I guess, what I've been up to and where I want to go over the next couple of months. It's been not too quiet over the whole COVID-19 conditions here in New Zealand, but yeah, sort of put a bit of a kibosh on putting up some videos and the like. But anyway, so I guess a quick update on what I've been up to, and then maybe talk about what I'd like to do moving forward. You may recall that this little rig over here, I have been using that out in the field, which has been going really well. What I did notice though, that because this filter here is quite narrow, and because my frequency was being adjusted at 1 kilohertz at a time, there were a couple of occasions where I would either miss or only just detect a CW signal coming through. So what I've done is I've just quickly changed the code, nothing spectacular here, and just changed it that the default setting now is changing by 200 hertz. So the rate, and yeah, 200 hertz. So for example, this is a 40 meter rig, so the frequency here is 7026800. So as you can see there, it's going up by 200 hertz at a time, and that's fixed the problem. And now it's relatively fast to go through the frequency. I'm having no problems now in terms of potentially missing a CW signal. And of course, I've still got the option to push down and to rotate to go into that fine tuning mode to go down to 10 hertz. The other change I made too, I elected to just make this purely a CW rig, and I've just decided to constrain the upper and lower frequency to 7 megs flat up to 7050. So the maximum this will go up to now, like I say, is 50. So it'll stop there, it'll peg on 50, and then back down to 0. So that was just one minor change I made there, so that's a good improvement. The other thing I did is I finished off finishing off more the point. This little rig here, it's a little 80 meter rig, voice. Decided to put that into what I have been using sort of recently, which is a big Tupperware container, or a big plastic container, and that's working really well too actually. So I took that away last weekend on a weekend away, and it works really well. Not designed to be what I would call a rig for the backpack, even though it's nice, it's relatively light. This one here is more for glamping, so to speak. So where we go staying in an Airbnb somewhere, that I'll take this along, erect the antenna and get to use it. So that's worked out really well. So I won't go through that at this stage of the game. It's a CW rig, if I didn't say that already. That's the one with the homebrew CW, so again, homebrew crystal filter there, with the classy amplifier, which is working really, really well. So that's good. So that was a nice little rig there. But anyway, so shifting forward to sort of new ideas of where I want to get to, or what I want to try and work on over the next few months. I'm sort of after some ideas, and I'd be quite keen to build something which I'm going to use. At the end of the day, it's building something which, like I say, I'm going to use. And some of the ideas that I'm going through was to make a loop antenna. There's been a couple of occasions now where we've been staying. It just hasn't been that practical to set up a long wire antenna. Certainly nice and out in the bush. I hadn't had too many problems out in the bush, but in some of the urban environments I've found that trying to set up a long wire antenna just hasn't been possible really. So I'm sort of quite keen to look at maybe building a loop antenna. 80 meters would be nice, but that might be a little bit unachievable with the size, but certainly 40 or 20 would be nice. So that's an idea that would be quite nice. Like all of these rigs, you build a rig, and then you think, well, I could have done that better, or this, that, and the other thing. So another idea would be to rebuild, not so much rebuild, but build another single sideband rig. I'm not quite sure if it would be 80, 40 or 20, or all of them. It'd be nice to, I think, port across this screen here. This is a touch screen where I can. At the moment it's just purely on switches, but I'd look to actually activate the touch screen to make mode changes. So it'd be nice to sort of port this particular screen across, as opposed to using some of those LCD, the 16:2 displays that I had been using in the past. It might be nice to try something different in regards to the mixers. This particular rig here is an SDR rig, but nevertheless, the SBL1 mixers I've used a few times. So maybe it's time to try an active mixer. I don't think I would go and try and source a real, so to speak, dual gate MOSFET, but as you know, I've got a pile of J310s, so maybe there's an option there to actually make an active filter out of two J310s cascaded to give that sort of pseudo dual gate MOSFET. So that would be an idea. The power amplifier, I would go something more than 5 watts. So again, as I've done in the past, playing around with some of these, probably not a good example here, but just I've still got bits of amplifiers lying around. Might be nice to sort of revisit some of those. Could potentially reuse some of the boards and build an amplifier with greater than 5 watts. So that's what I'd probably look to do. And what I'd probably also look to do is to mount that. If I just spin the camera around, mount that in this old FRG7 case. It's got quite a few controls there, which would be quite nice to hook into. I think that space there would be enough, big enough there to have the display. If I was to constrain some of the symbology in there to fit inside that, that'd be quite nice. You use the pre-selector there. So, so if I was to make that across 80 meters, then with such a wide band, it'd be quite nice then to have actually utilize the pre-selector. If not multiple bands, who knows, for that, so that'd be quite nice. What else we got there? Volume, of course, we got the mode changes. So basically just have those sort of discrete switches feeding into a microprocessor of some sort, and ultimately having a digital, phase lock loop for the VFO and the BFO. So that's another idea that I'd like to utilize in that option there for the single sideband rig. A digital mode, I haven't done a lot by regards to digital modes. You'll recall a while back I had a bit of a play around with the a whisper transmitter, just to say I've been there, done that. To date I haven't done anything else in regards to digital modes, be it FT8 or anything else. So that could be an option. I'm not quite sure what that's going to entail, but like I say, that's another option. Another one here I've got here is a Quisk SDR based rig. And what I mean by that is I've got an old EPC over here, one of those old sort of 2010 or 11, around there somewhere, netbooks, and this one here is still functional, still works. At the moment it's got a Windows 10 running on it, but an option there may be to actually wipe off Windows 10, put a Linux distribution on, and then run, say, Quisk. And the reason why I've sort of picked on Quisk is, my understanding is, it's relatively easy, if I want to use that word, to interface through, interface the software with homebrew hardware. So to have the software driving the hardware and vice versa. Now, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's, from what I can understand, it's one of the easier software platforms to do that. The other option is to keep Windows on it and use a Windows-based SDR program and try and do the same. But like I say, I've got a little laptop sort of just sitting here wanting to do something, so maybe that could be an option, do another SDR-based rig around that. So anyway, so that was sort of some ideas that sort of came to mind of projects where I could see, from my point of view, being able to utilise those moving forward. So anyway, I'll just throw it out there. Please, if you've got any other ideas or you like some of those, please leave a comment. That'd be much appreciated, and constructive feedback absolutely. And I'll like to, like I say, identify a project and start moving forward. I must admit, I sort of do quite like the SSSB rig, using this display and that. But then again, in the same breath, the loop antenna might be quite good as well. But yep, I can just make up a list and we'll go from there. Anyway, I'll say 73s because I know I'm starting to ramble now, which is a bad habit I have. I'll say 73, and everybody please stay safe with this COVID pandemic that's still running rife. Okay, cheers all.